Hello and welcome to Access Astrology. We are three astrologers who are fascinated by how astrology unfolds in your daily life, in the politics around, and in our spiritual search, and how astrology is the language that weaves them together. And I hope to be joined here is Anne Ortley. I'm going to add her in. And add to stage. There you go, Anne. Hi, Anne. There you are.
How are you? Yeah.
Good. We're just putting up the chart for today and saying that we've arrived here. Now, Mercury is very much in its shadow, and I also see Mark Woltz. I'm just going to put all of us together here for the moment.
There's Mark. Hi, Mark. Yay.
Hi.
And
the gang is all here. Hail.
yay.
All here.
And what a week it is. We've got an eclipse coming.
Oi,
You know, we have Mercury stationary. Mercury stationary bothers me more than Mercury full on retrograde because I'm such a Mercury all over my chart. So when a few days ago, my Medium account where I post my star codes every week was frozen because they thought I was using AI. So they shut me down. And I'm like, excuse me, I don't even know how to use AI, let alone do it here. So after a few fervent comments, they reorganized it and got me back online. I heard someone else got shut down from their Instagram account for violating, and they really did get shut down and for violating community standards, but they hadn't posted in a year. So the whole metaverse is on freak out at the moment, as often happens when Mercury stations. So I want you to keep a careful eye on all of your accounts and be willing to get in there with the letters and insist on what's your truth on the situation.
I have somebody made a fake Facebook again, so somebody wrote, it's not me. My Facebook's fine. I just posted to it. It's a fake one. Go report them, because they block me and then they DM people like, hey, maybe you should get a free reading. And, just to say, I think it's important as astrologers, we don't hit you up to come for readings. We say, hey, we're out here. I will never DM you and say, do you want a reading? I've been thinking about you. I have some psychic insight. I want to help. No. You book.
We're here. It's up to you. You want us? We're here.
But that little faker, and I had one point I had somebody I think it was Instagram, and I think it was Instagram, and the whole thing. I mean, this is my bias. Mark Zuckerberg stole Facebook, so it's very easy for them. They don't really care if somebody steals your identity. They're just like, oh well, so sad. But I had this woman one of my students was Scorpio, stellium Scorpio, traced her down, Mark, and this woman had Saturn on my part of fortune. So I was like, of course she's, saying, yeah, let me, $20 and I'll give you a reading, and I'm like,
yeah. Mark, how are you feeling Mercury stationing and everything of the eclipse about to hit?
It just seems like there's so much to do. Like I could make a to-do list, and the top of the to-do list would be a to-do list.
And then it doesn't to done. There's no
there's no to done.
You're not to doing it. It's not happening.
That's a good way of putting it. So here, looking at the chart today, the moon is in Leo, and it is forming a square to that Uranus.
Yeah.
Mars is in Cancer. It's moving forward. It'll be moving into a trine with Saturn, which will give us some stability and endurance and, ruthlessness if we need, and for the better or for worse, but just kind of pushing in there. Tomorrow, the Sun conjuncts Saturn, and I think that's the taking it seriously, and I see it affecting the stock market. How do you see that Sun-Saturn conjunction, Anne?
Well, it happens every year, right? So that's, our annual
Sun
meets Saturn, and Saturn says, hey, Sun, sober up. And, I was at a conference this weekend, and Christine Skinner was talking about having to send her slides in 2 weeks early because that's what Faye Cochran, who ran the conference, had asked for. And this other guy goes, well, I didn't mail mine in until yesterday. And she goes, well, I have a sun Saturn. I follow the rules. And then this guy in the back goes, yeah, I sent mine in early too. And then of course, I brought mine that morning, right? Because I don't have a sun
Yeah.
Saturn. So the sun Saturn people really feel it.
Mhm.
But it also is like you have to follow the rules now. And also it's stiffness, Saturn is is the sign of the bone. So a lot of people are reporting feeling stiff, a little achy, a little not quite, things aren't quite working, not flowing. And of course, we're seeing consequences, Saturn, of actions, Sun, right? So that's where, we're seeing the stock market react because it's an emotional reaction. That Mars is out of bounds in Cancer. And people are going, ah! I've had a few people write very anxious about, it's also eclipse season. So the good news is the sun will be on the far side of Saturn when we have the eclipse. Because if it was, but it also is health things. So really paying attention to health stuff and saying, okay, where am I feeling blocked or held back? Because the moon's forming a health aspect of a quincunx to the sun. And it's very much about like, okay, how do I get things accomplished?
Right.
It's kind of stressful, frankly.
It is. And I think also that we have a Venus Mercury exact conjunction now, which we're going to have again soon in Aries. So people are responding really quickly and with a lot of fire. Now that Sun Saturn conjunction, I'm seeing that, Fox News has been taking Trump to task for his economic things. That is so weird. But it is good. It's like that Sun Saturn, like, these rules are really not following.
They're owned by Rupert Murdoch, who likes his money. So he's like, you can be conservative, but don't screw around with my stock markets,
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. They were saying that the people that were behind Trump in the inauguration have lost $100 billion combined with the shenanigans with the stock market. So.
Oh, dear.
And he's getting some word back. Yeah. So.
Right. I'm seeing FAFO after everything, the fuck around and find out acronym. And that, people are just saying, I'm just seeing so much out here in the West of people realizing what they actually voted for.
Yeah.
And that it's trickier than they thought.
Yeah.
Mark, and this is the eclipse coming up, and it will be Friday morning on the East Coast at 2:54 a.m. And Mark, what do you see with that? It's going to be 23 Virgo to Pisces, just past Saturn.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to carry a lot of the Saturn energy. That's really the theme. So you might as well roll up your sleeves and take responsibility. That there's no getting out of it. So all the things you didn't want to do for the last few weeks, just do them. And they'll go well. If you put them off another week, they'll fall apart. Right. So do it, just do it. That's where the to-do list comes in again. Make a to-do list and especially concentrate on the last couple of weeks. And that carries the Saturn energy. So you'll be bringing that into doing the to-do list and it'll get done. And then you'll feel better later. With Saturn, you always feel better later.
Yeah, it's delayed gratification.
What do you say about I'm pulling up the eclipse chart on the Americas chart, but Anne, what do you say about the eclipse? Because you're really good with eclipses.
Well, a couple things. It ties back to the new moon that we had in September 14th of 2023. And then the opening square, which was June 14th of last year. And this is the full moon. So think about what you were doing in fall of 2023. And this eclipse wants you to take that out into the world and do something different with it. So it's got an older story, but also because it's a full moon with the sun besieged between the node and Neptune and Saturn. It's a goodbye eclipse. It's very much about encouraging you to walk away with the sun on that north node. It's saying walk away from the situations with Uranus in a nice trine to the moon on the south node, situations that were hard for you to think of leaving, you actually are going to be like, I'm actually okay to let that go.
Mhm.
And then the other part is the sky is full of fire and air, fire and water. So it's got an emotional component, but it also encourages us to kind of let go. And Pallas Athena is very active. She's talking to the Mercury and the Venus. So it's also, having a new strategy because she's on the midpoint of them, because Venus is 7 and Mercury is 9 and Pallas Athena is 8. So she's saying, so what's your new strategic approach in terms of how you want to work with things? And Mercury rules the Jupiter in Gemini, which gives us choices that we might actually want to pick, or we might want to think about whether we should pick them. I guess maybe it's a better way. But the key to me is that Mars out of bounds. I just keep watching him like a little hawk
Out of bounds and in its fall, in its
in its
detriment.
fall.
It's
And
just so uncomfortable there.
every time that moon changes signs, that Mars starts acting in a new way. And so that's the erraticness of the sky, or the erraticness of the world. Like, well, today we're going to do this. Well, then tomorrow we're going to do that. And then you've got 2.5 days and then it shifts into the next thing. And it's really, like when you're on a roller coaster and your head goes this way and then your head goes that way. And then it's like we're on this cosmic roller coaster of emotions, which is really hard.
And for the people that don't quite get that, what Anne's talking about is that Mars in the moon ruled sign Cancer, that you always have the dialogue between the rulers of the planets, of the signs the planets are in. And that's a powerful dialogue there.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And every time the moon changes sign, Mars has a new boss. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of like, got substitute teachers every 2.5 days. Today he's got the mean teacher. Tomorrow he's got the nice teacher. He's got the teacher that goes, let's just read poetry. Let's dance in the classroom. Tomorrow he's got, to Mark's point, he's in Virgo. He's got a to-do list that's got to be done. And then when Mercury goes into Aries, into Libra, it's answering to Venus in Aries. So it's a fighting moon. I mean, it's very
tricky,
chaotic, and it's hard. People are
and
really.
Mars in Cancer tends to bring out on a good day, it can be taking care of yourself, your people, your homeland, and doing good things. On a bad day, it can make people really touchy about any criticism and defensive, and that self-protective side. And that can be really tricky as we see acting out in the politics. It also can bring out a strong nationalistic streak. So the difference between America first, Canada first, Mexico first, Greenland first, Europe first, Ukraine first, the fight for the homeland and what it means to my land that you're misbehaving is swirling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to point out, this is the American chart. I know it's a little hard to see here, but it's the American chart with our progressions and where the eclipse will hit. And we have Neptune when America was born, and this is the mythic America, July 4th. Neptune at 22 Virgo. So we're going through, Neptune has just finished its Neptune opposition, but this eclipse is within a degree of our Neptune, of our tendency to have illusion, our question about how religion affects our country. And it can, eclipses to me are, like I always describe them as astrological acupuncture. Like it unblocks blocked energy, but can also make things like ripe fruit fall, or or earthquakes, that things shift there's been tension because it was ready to shift. So it can bring some real changes to that American chart, hitting on that Neptune. And we've seen the progressed moon in Aries. 4 months ago, we shifted from Sun and Moon in Pisces to the moon in Aries by progression. And you could just feel that ramping up in action, emotions, extremes during this time. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how that, with Venus and Mercury going back and forth, expect people to be just spouting off. and take it only so seriously, but it is strong and it's there, and we wish it to move into a better thing. Jupiter's going through our seventh house, but it's going to be coming up to conjunct our Mars in the seventh house. And for the country, that's all of our allies and partnerships. That there's a lot of Mars energy between us and them now, especially in our dialogue. Let's see how that works out. Anything else that you see offhand?
The Jupiter also to the Mars also starts a new 12-year cycle about how we identify ourselves. So part of that, there was an excellent speech by someone in France talking about us as, our behavior, basically.
Right, I saw that.
I don't know our country's behavior, our president's behavior in terms of, and that's the Jupiter on the, on the Mars. The founding fathers were Masons, so they picked this chart. So they put the seventh house is also the house of your open enemies. So they put Mars in a weakened position in Gemini, answering to a Mercury retrograde in Cancer, and in a weak house, because Mars does not like being in the seventh house. In Libra, the sign of, the
opposite, the one that would naturally be comfortable in.
Be comfortable. So it makes our enemies weak, but it also makes them talk about us. And with Jupiter there, Trump's sun is a Gemini. He lands on that Mars. So that's the changing, today we're this, tomorrow that, today we're this, which is making, like Canada came out and said, look, till you guys behave yourself, we're putting the tariffs on you because you're out of control. And so that's the, the consequence of the authoritative father with Saturn on our progressed sun. Our progressed sun is in Pisces. We're crazy right now. We're like a drunken sailor. And so as we have Saturn come to that sun, it's like straighten up and fly right, people. What are you doing? And so that energy of that back and forth shift, where our people are like, what are you doing? We also have the Mars retrograde and the Saturn retrograde by progression. Saturn's retrograde for 80 years. So we are changing our values on some fundamental level. Saturn is exalted in Libra in the 10th house. Like when we're supposed to be good leaders and be responsible, reliable, and dependable with Saturn in high. Exalted by placement, exalted by house, exalted by sign, exalted by placement. So the Masons picked this chart, which is a great chart. It honors the Masonic creed. As Heather always says, it's our aspiration. We yearn to be this, so we keep evolving and trying to do it, answering to that great Jupiter that we have in Cancer. So, we're going to have the Jupiter return for the country when we get to June, July, which will be helpful. But right now we're having the Jupiter return to the Mars, which is a little more dicey,
Right.
So, yeah.
No, it's going to be interesting. We ask everybody to kind of imagine that with all this conversation that we can move forward. The decisions made while Mercury's retrograde for the next few weeks often have to be rethought, reorganized, but we're already in this 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps back, 1 step forward dance with our economy. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. So we had a question from one of our clients. I'm going to switch that to a woman born in Enid, Oklahoma. So I've got all her charts under Enid, and it's one of our long-term questions. And she wonders where she's going to live. She's lived in New York for a while, then is back in Texas, is not happy there. And so we just want to talk about the Libra Sun relationship questions. Is the Libra Sun, Venus in Libra, and a Mercury Mars conjunction in Scorpio. Looking forward to all of this. And we're getting some nice comments, by the way, on our side. I just see that over there. Thank you all. I'm so glad you're enjoying this and watching this. So I wanted to put in her tri-wheel and then talk about what I noticed is when I couldn't figure out how to get the map loaded up. But what I noticed when she's talking about, do I want to live here? She's moved back to near Enid, Oklahoma, back to her natal chart on a moon line. And that moon line is going to be taking some heat over the next couple of years. So it may be a little uncomfortable with, but it's her Mars in Gemini at anybody who's got Mars at 1 degree is going to, or any planet at 0 to 2 degrees is going to be feeling a lot this year as Uranus heads into it and Saturn heads in, everything that's changing signs, and all the outer planets are changing signs this year, are talking to our planets at those early degrees. So it's going to be asking her, feeling discontent in her home down here with Mars in that. I have her tri-wheel here, where we have her natal chart with progressions and transits for the day. And I was noticing that her progressed moon just went into Cancer about 4 months ago. So probably she was not content in Texas. But when your progressed moon goes into Cancer, it's a longing for a home you've never met. It's a kind of a existential homesickness is what I've found. Have you seen that, Anne?
Yeah. Yeah. Cancer moon is also, the last almost 5 months, she's been like, I've got this feeling of what I need to do. It's been opposite her progressed sun in Capricorn also. So she was, of course, born, and then she's progressed now to be a Cap. And with Uranus on her Mars and Uranus natally living in her 7th house, I would be like, are you living near friends? And Uranus is going to come to that Mars in June, July. It's going to be very activated. Jupiter's going to form a semi-sextile to it. Uranus is going to be on the Mars. Saturn and Neptune are going to be trining it or sextiling it in the what's of value to her house, and Pluto's going to be trining it out of her 12th house. So she's got a real mandate to go find a place where she wants to settle, where her friends are, would be what I would say. Is like, well, where are your friends, Anina? Do you have people there? If so, go. If not, kind of pop around and try different places until you. But I often find when you go back to where you were born, which a lot of people did during COVID, they went back and lived with family members or back to their hometown. It like resets your chart. It's kind of like Monopoly. You go by, you get your $200 and you're ready to go again. So her landing there is fine, but I would watch for her to pop out again soon.
Right.
That's not a.
That's what I felt. One of the things I noticed that there wasn't that much support for her chart on the East Coast, and there isn't really on the far West Coast unless we went into Alaska, but the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, the kind of inland West Coast, west of the Rockies but east of the coastline, moved her, many planets around in her chart and put Jupiter right on her midheaven. And, I feel like that might be an interesting time for her, moving into that Jupiter on the midheaven, and it puts a lot of planets from her 9th into the, near the 10th, that she might feel more engaged if she heads west rather than east, if she wanted to go explore that northwest corner and find a place that felt both exciting and that she could have some friends, because that would be Jupiter on the cusp between the 10th and the 11th, but way up there, and that she would her whole chart seem to come alive there.
Yeah.
So that's just a suggestion.
Mark, what do you think, Mark?
Yeah, your progressed sun is trine to your Pluto right
I'll go back to that.
Yeah, and that's a really powerful combination. So you really want to use it to make transformations. Whatever this move is, make it a complete move. Don't say I'll go back and get something. You've got it all. It's all with you, and no matter what you bring in a box, what is in your heart and your lungs, that's what you need. So make it that kind of a move.
We might find that the Uranus will be hitting her fourth house cusp, which is almost always either a move, a renovation, a relocation. Home and change are one.
Yeah.
And then it will be tagging her Mars in the fourth, then coming back and going forth. So there's going to be some unsettled time coming up. And just really think through, as Mark said, you're heading into a time when you want to settle and make it a real, like, either commit to that area and renovate or be ready to relocate. And I think you wouldn't be comfortable settling if you don't go explore some of your options first. And I think Anne's point with that moon in Aquarius, Aquarius rising, and what's happening in your 11th house, that community and friends are very important in this chart. And it's also where you can be of service and be helpful and feel needed.
Right. And, and as, being in the same age bracket, your friends start to transition. They starting to get sick. They start to retire. They move. They shift locations. So there's a lot of, like finding where your people are is really important. And that I think will help a lot in terms of making you, because you got that moon in the first. It's really important for you to be near your tribe in your natal chart, right? So, like, where are your people, and go find them, so where do your fellow Aquarians live? With the moon Uranus, it's so important for you to feel connected to people, so.
And I wanted to come back to that. That's a very good point, and good luck, our person over there from Enid. And to come back to the American chart and the eclipse, because one of the comments that we got was just billionaires losing money doesn't change much in their personal lives compared to the damage that job cuts, tariffs, and inflation are causing the average American. And so I completely agree. And it's, one of the things that we see in the American chart is Pluto, which they, the Masons didn't know Pluto back in the day, but they put Pluto, the power pack, in Capricorn, business power, in the second house of material resources, opposite Mercury. Always that some tension around who do we value, who are we working for, who's got the power, the people, which the rest of the chart speaks of, that moon in Aquarius in the third, or the people with the money and the economic power with Pluto in the second house. And, at the heart of our Pluto return, we had January 6th under the 45th administration. But where would you look for the voice of the people? How is the everyday person? Would that be third house? Would that be that Saturn in the 10th? Feels like there's many different places that we could look for how the person on the street is being affected.
Right. Well, my comment about the billionaires was also why Rupert Murdoch is coming after them, because in that category of people, the whole thing is about the acquisition of money. So you take away their money, you hurt them, and you have to recognize the money and power dyad, where we're going to be supportive of this administration because we're afraid of it. They're going to come after our money and power, and they still went after the money and power because the stock market crashed. So that's totally with respect to the person who commented about the people losing their job. Uranus, the public is this fifth house. We've got Uranus in that house. It's going to be there in the next 8 years. So this is a major reshuffling of that. Also, the moon in Aquarius is the public,
the people, right?
The people in general and their feelings about things. And the thing to remember is there's 97 million people that are eligible to vote who did not vote. There were 63 million people who were registered to vote who did not vote. Of the 70 and 73 million, whatever, the 140 million people that voted, 63 million were registered and didn't vote. 97 million are eligible and didn't vote. The subset. So there's a lot of people that are looking at this and going, holy, how can this be happening?
Right.
So that I kind of look at very optimistically. That's the Uranus waking up the sixth house. And of course, in Aquarius is the last time it happened. It's always revolutions against people that hold the power who are not handling it well, whether it's the destruction of the Inca Empire, the Protestant Reformation, the American Revolution, the French Revolution. The people get up and go, what? And they go after the Capricorn, which is the consolidation of the power. And Aquarius goes, time to break it up. So in this case, we're breaking up the country as we're firing the government, which isn't necessarily the version of Aquarius we maybe want. So this is where people need to pipe up.
Really coming back to what is the voice of the people.
That's the voice of the people.
Yeah, and Neptune last went into Aries, as it will at the very last day of this month, on the first day of the American Civil War. Uranus was also in Gemini then, and it's heading into Gemini this summer. But it's, I think both of those can be used other ways than Civil War, but it will say the heat's turning up. And if we can, that the conversation, a real conversation about what really will help the country is essential, and not just the how do I not tick off the narcissist, but a real conversation on that was going to be an important part of the next step.
Yeah, and also it was a civil war, but it also was June of 1941, which was World War II. And when Neptune was last in Aries was also the Crimean War, Crimea is part of Ukraine. So we're having a cycle for us to look and say, hey, and of course history is helpful, because if you know history, you won't repeat it. But if you don't know history, you will. So that's part of our journey here too. But we're just awakening. So,
we're just awakening.
So everybody awake now. So get out there and say what you think. And I guess they're not answering the phones in the Capitol.
Yeah, they're saying send actual letters, emails, but actual letters.
Send postcards.
So I've emailed my senator many times. Mark, if you would like to close with a meditation on how they can use the sorting process of this coming eclipse, and just because to face it, because I'm hearing so many people dealing with the anxiety of that full moon in Virgo, which can raise everybody up, but it's a gift to sort it, to use it to sort, and to say, what do we need to hold and nurture is much as important as what we release.
Yeah.
So
Good,
Mark?
So sit for a moment, let yourself relax, close your eyes, think about where in your chart is the most energy to let go of things. It's going to be a little different for all of us. Some of us, it's the South Node. Some of us, it's Mars cutting things out. Some of it is Venus saying if it doesn't fit, throw it out. So think where it is in your chart, because you're going to use that to deal with the energy that the universe is calling up to let go of things. So see where you can help that along. And if you're not sure, think about it again tomorrow and the next day, and be ready for Friday with the lunar eclipse. Okay, open your eyes. And here we go. Another week.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week. Good luck.
Good. Thanks for tuning in.
Go to the doctor if you get sick. It's an eclipse with illness in it too.